testosterone. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one courage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one courage, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time when though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right, so we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one courage, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one courage, not a blade of grass.
The sum of 215.875 million was for dietary supplies. There were amounts totaling 44 million for the supply to Cato breakfast school feeding program. During the period, they're saying, and at the time, only amounts of 9.770 were verified as having been received. So this leaves a balance of 34.230 million, which essentially can't be accounted for.
Are you?
No, Mr. Chair, just on that very matter, that is the same special audit report that is being reported there.
Can we refrain from formulating questions that the report addresses?
Well, the report, no, this is another. Is this the same thing in the audit report?
Yes, it is.
All right. So this is one we can come back to.
We're not dealing with it. Remember, the members online, the 3 members don't have access to it.
Now, you go.
Siraj,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to 850 this up. It states here that a contract for emergency repair to revetment at Wrong Turn, Madia. So apparently there are a lot of things wrong with this contract here. I noted in the accounting officer response that this project was demolished. Can we get some additional information on this paragraph, sir?
are you?
project.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
was demolished? Can we get
There's
some
an ongoing
information on this paragraph?
development of this section of the roadway, and that structure was recently demolished to allow for the development of the road.
But notwithstanding that, Mr. Chairman, the Auditor General would have highlighted that there were some overpayments made on this particular project at Wrong Turn. So Wrong Turn project was demolished, but the contractor was paid to execute X amount of works. And based on the measurement that there was a overpayment of just about $800,000. What's the latest on this? The contractor, is there any move to recover these sums?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the contractor was written to, as I referred to at 50. The contractor stated, if I may, there was an agreed adjustment. That is his explanation. His explanation when confronted on this issue by myself, that the original contract, there was an adjustment to the original contract to allow for a better structure at a cost that was more than the original contracted sum. He claimed that the regional officials agreed with his recommendations, but did not do any variations on the original document, hence the reflected overpayment. The region continues to pursue this matter in an effort to bring closure. We discussed with him, we wrote to him and had him come in for a discussion. And he's saying that despite the fact that it cost him more than what the Auditor General is saying that he was overpaid, because works that are not documented are not counted. But because of the fact, his explanation is that the works were adjusted verbally and not the document being addressed, hence there is really overpayment. He has agreed that the audit report is one that, and we explained to him that he hasn't a case, because if the adjustments were made, he should have seen to it that the adjustments were in writing. He has agreed, in a sense, to commence repayment, but he claims to be not in a position so to do as of now.
Has he been awarded any contracts since?
He has not tendered, at least for this current year, he has not tendered for any projects.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Go ahead.
Right, but if first, is there any evidence that there was within the region's record keeping system engineering department? Is there any evidence that is to substantiate his claim that these variation order were given? Because now that the project has been demolished, you will not be able to really measure anything to see whether additional works were done outside of the agreed scope. So this basically, you might end up in a situation where it is basically proving his claim against your lack of record, or maybe you do have some record, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, the gentleman has some knowledge of the construction of bridges over the years, as he would have explained. When we explained to him the legal stuff here, that he was in error, and he will be willing to start making restitution. But as I said, he said he's not in a position to do so immediately.
Dr. Mahadia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to direct the REO's attention to 853, where a septic tank that was not needed was built.
853, you said?
853, yes. And the only thing I see here, the administration regrets is bad judgment, but also action taken by the region. It says the head of budget agency stated that this project was conceptualized by the former REO. I'd like to ask, since we have the engineer who was here then, what was his role in this project?
Go ahead, Ari.
Mr. Chairman, Committee Engineer.
Mr. Chairman, the REO's quarter at the time, it had an existing septic tank and existing toilet facilities in the upper flat, which it was. As for REO's request being his residence, he preferred having a downstairs toilet enclosed and prefers it having a separate septic tank, a large enough septic tank, just for that particular toilet.
Expect more use. I don't understand the rationale at all.
Chair, you might
Yes.
Yeah, if I may. So I'm going to the engineer again. So was the REO advised that the septic tank that was in place would have been adequate for whatever it is, the amount that would be coming from the downstairs toilet?
Mr. Chair, the REO was advised that the existing septic tank could have been able to offset the loading capacity.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
What evidence do you have, sir? But he was advised.
he was advised.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
if I could direct the REO's attention to 842 and 843. There was an overpayment of 570,000 in relation to the septic tank. You with me, are you? Yeah. So there were bidders, there were verification, and then it was discovered 570,000 was overpaid. And in the following paragraph, again, similar things took place. And it was discovered that there had again been an overpayment of 616,500. My first question is, isn't there a procedure in place before payments are made that work is confirmed and measured?
Yes, there is.
So how is it that there is an overpayment in two separate things, two separate occasions?
Well, the payments were more likely prepared to the value of the contract without the actual measured works being done before you do the final payment.
So what you're saying is that the full contractual sums were paid to the contractor
Correct.
without reference to what has actually been done?
I can only surmise. I've not been there, but that's the only way I could see it happening.
Now, the overpayment amounts, the efforts were made to recover that, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
They have been refunded. We have refunded.
When were these recoveries, when were they received, these overpayments?
The refunds, from what I'm seeing here, is sometime in August of 21. This year, August.
August of this year?
Yes.
So these repayments, these overpayments that would have taken place between May and December of 2016, and it is now that we've gotten the overpayments back. Now, is there, going forward, is there a mechanism or a procedure or a process that is being implemented to ensure this sort of thing don't happen moving forward?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
We have, at least as of this year, I can't speak for prior years until the auditors would have. We have insisted that every final payment is not only done with our technical people checking it off, but also the Works Committee of the Regional Democratic Council. The chairman of that committee also has to sign on onto it.
So what occurred, essentially what you're saying, what happened here, you have a process in place that should ensure this sort of thing does not occur in the future.
That is correct.
Now, when these projects are put together and you make a determination as to what works are done, who would be the final person? Where would the final decision lie as to what works are to be done? Is it with you?
In a technical sense, yes, but after being advised by the technical people.
I appreciate that. Now, the reason I ask that is in paragraph 842, reference is made that it was a bad decision to install a pressure pump because there was no electricity. Why would you understand the components and the things that you would do? You would pay to install a pressure pump when you don't have electricity. Makes absolutely no sense. So is there now in place some form of, again, mechanism or some systems are put in place to make sure that contracts like this don't essentially provide things that you can't use and don't need?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What are those systems, if I could ask?
The systems are that documents are prepared in relation to immediate needs or probably short-term future needs, but ensuring that in the case, as of this case, that there is electricity available if you're
I know some people are very
to be done with electricity. And I would like to add that the Cato Guest House has a reasonably powerful solar system. As to whether it would be powerful enough to run a pump, I'm not certain. We also would have had over the years, and it's still there, but non-functioning. It's a generator set that used to be used, that we have guests there that you would have it work. And we are also looking towards ensuring that that is open. Yes, but to answer your question, we try to get value for money without reaching too far ahead of ourselves.
Now, sir, I raised 842, 843, but just to go on, again, there was a contract awarded 844, paragraph 844.
Proceed.
Yes. Yes, good.
So, Chair, for me, this here is very, we need to highlight it that there's this work that's going on. Public works is used to spend when basically it should have been known that it will not go into use. So this thing has been there for some time, and the REO, I think, is indicating it's still not being in use. Or if it's still there. I would like to have an idea as to how something like this could have happened. What's the process? So you have a project coming up. Who conceptualizes it? How does it go through the system to reach something like this?
Ariel?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's conceptualized at the budgetary preparation cycle, where this project would have been deemed to be a necessity. As to the scope in terms of what is put in, sometimes the REO would want to guide that process and say, oh, I'd like to have this, I'd like to have that, in keeping with the budgetary provisions. And more often than not, and I speak here for myself, our input at that level bear fruit, because the engineers would come on board and know we have the resources and it would be in the interest of getting the project done to a higher standard.
But are you clearly this wasn't done? What you're describing here wasn't done in this instance. And I'm speaking specifically about this instance where monies are spent on a project that from the beginning should have been known that it would work. No electricity, so why put in electrical apparatus? So I would like to know, what was it thinking? How did this happen? This is in 2016. I don't know, again, my good friend, the engineer, if he could assist us here. How did this happen? Because it was under his watch as the engineer.
Before we get to the engineer, Mr. Chairman, as I explained earlier, REOs, I would want to think, throughout the country, do play important role in planning of these work. And invariably, REOs get their way once it's within the framework of what is possible. We're talking 2016 here. We're talking 2016 when you will see all the anomalies here. And then for me to say, I don't know, I can't answer that. For 2016.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Ario. You were not there. So, but the engineer was there.
Mr. Engineer?
Engineer, how could, if I may, to the Ario, how could we have had this kind of lapse?
Mr. Chair, it was not a lapse, as per se, it was a design requirement. For the same reason, when the guest house was extended, it was extended without windows. None of the rooms currently have windows. So
that's which years.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Couple questions. We're hearing now that guest house is extended without windows. I would like to know who's responsible for doing that design. And Mr. Chair, I would like the accounting officer to walk us through the stages of budgeting at the regional level. How do you get something as part of your budget? How does he put something as part of his budget? So those are the two things right now. For starters, let's just go down this road.
Mr. Chairman, budgeting is done at the administrative level by the involvement of the program heads. The program heads would look at their program and see where would be their priorities in relation to what we're planning for, be it capital or current maintenance work. The program heads inform the process. Yes, we do budget, and sometimes we budget excessively in the sense of being overambitious. But then when reality kicks in and the figures are made available of what you will have, the program heads again are on board and prioritize what they will do, which project will go, in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance, of course. and like that. So it's a process that also involves the communities, because at RDC level, we do discuss these budgetary plans and allocations that we see fit. And the budget cannot come to the Ministry of Finance through local government without having the signing on of the RDC, which represents the region in every single village. So that is the process that we adopt and use.
And the second question, who's responsible for the actual design? We're hearing that we have a building, additions, extensions of building without windows. Who's responsible for that design?
The persons that will be responsible will be the technical people in the works department, that's the engineers. But as I said before, REOs do play a role in having inputs into what the final design would be.
Mr. Chair, just to bring some clarity to it, the accounting officer made a statement earlier in which he said that the REOs would more often than not, I believe those words, like get their way with the process and projects that they want on it. But now when he's identifying the method, the process of actually doing the budgeting, it's clear that it has to go to the council altogether, and they need to sign off on it. So that those two things basically doesn't coincide. But we have the engineer here. So Mr. Chair, through you, I would like the engineer to actually say whether or not he did a design without windows. Did that pass through him? Because he was the only engineer at that point in time. What went on there?
Mr. Chairman, before the engineer cuts in here, I was referring to two different aspects of budgetary preparation and execution. The initial aspect of the council coming on board is at the planning stage. The part of the REO having an input on design and final situation is in the execution stage. So there's not a conflict there, really.
But we're saying that, all right, let me go back to the response of the region. I believe it was, I'm not seeing it. Basically, the response that we were looking at was saying that they regret this. They regret what? 442. Not being able to follow. Mr. Chair, the point I was getting to, and I hear the REO and what he's saying, but when we have discussions on whether or not something was necessary and all of that, and it is clear that in order for them to even budget for stuff like a septic tank and things like that, it had to go through a process. It's not a one-man process at any point in time. So the engineer would have been involved, the RDC would have been involved, everyone is involved, and then suddenly we're here today and say, well, it wasn't necessary. So this is not a REO issue. Everyone decided that it was necessary. This was something that was signed off on. Okay?
Dr. Mario?
Chair, I still want to hear what the engineer has to say.
Oh, yes. Engineer, go ahead.
It's the same thing. Same question.
Walk us through the process. Where these things are concerned, 2016, walk us through the process. What happened?
Chair, as most of us would know, the regional budgeting system is divided into two phases, the capital aspect and the recurrent aspect. The capital aspect is the one that would be more stringent and the one that you have to stick to directly. But under the recurrent item, it doesn't go through the same sort of scrutiny. There is some level of flexibility that the regional administration can use from time to time. In terms of the conceptualization of a project is conceptualized by program heads in collaboration with meeting with members of the public and end users. In terms of the design, the engineering department designs what is requested of the various program heads or the various end users or the various individuals that may request. So as far as design is concerned, the engineering department designs what is requested. Advice would pass that maybe the design is not the most suitable, the best for the location or what is preferred for the area. But in terms of design and planning, they stand separately.
Thank you. Member Dr. Then you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to bring your attention, if I can, to paragraphs 845, which is a contract for the repairs of the revetment of Kawa Creek. It makes reference to a sum of 1.462 million. Physical verification. This was paid as at
If you're one of those
31st December 2016. Physical verification on 3rd July 2017 revealed no works. The entire sum should be recovered. Your explanation as to how this has occurred.
Well, the only explanation is that monies were paid for work not done.
And this would have been during that period. The recommendation was that you recover money as well for this project.
Yeah.
Can you say when that money was recovered as well? Is it in August of this year again?
Yes.
So from 2016 to now, again, it takes so long, but there is something that concerns me. The project that is mentioned at the Cato Guest House, the project that is mentioned about the administrative building, the third project is Cato Playfield, the next project is Kawa Creek. We go on to the next one, Chewing Mount to Cato Phase 1. Again, a project for the rehabilitation of roadways. The sum of what I believe should be 1.5 million. As of 31st December 2016, the full amount paid. Physical verification, 3rd July 2017, no works. So this is the road from Chewing Mount to Cato Phase 1. This is again a different project. And the same thing has occurred. Are you saying again that what happened, payments occurred without measurements or without confirmation of work's been done? It's paid on the contract.
In this case, no.
Okay, what happened on this case?
In this case, these projects were awarded to the villages of Cato and Chiangmouth in keeping with the community participation policy of the region, supported by central government. We gave to the communities these contracts to keep these roads in order. This was a 2016 project.
Yes.
It's Horton Road. It's mountainous terrain. It's valleys. And it runs down mountain sides. And then we can check it in September or whatever it was, July of 2017. How then do we say no work was done? Yes, there will be deterioration because of the condition, the geography, the topography,
Well,
and in keeping with ensuring that we were on the right track for myself, I personally went to these communities prior to responding here and had discussion with the leaders who insisted, yes, the work was done. But deterioration that took place because it's earthen roads, bad weather.
so what is in the report of the Auditor General at paragraph 846? Is that inaccurate?
That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, if we can just ask 6. Yeah. The Chairman, with your leave, if we could ask
Yes,
the AG,
most definitely.
what's that?
AG?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Victor Lal, Acting Director, Works and Structures.
Welcome back, Victor.
Thank you. Good to be back. All right. Just let me shed some light on what we did on the 3rd of July. When we went into this region to do the physicals, the current engineer that they have would have just been transferred into that region. So he was new to these projects. The former engineer had been transferred. So we were on the ground together, and the current engineer there, he was new. So he couldn't definitively say this was what was happening. We had another member of their department accompany us on that trip. And he would have identified sections of the roadway that he himself wasn't too keen on what transpired. So we drove along the roadway. We were also taking into consideration that the weather might have deteriorated the surface. But at that time, the officer that went with us to identify these works, he made it clear to us, look, these are the sections, and it appears as though nothing has been done. We took measurements, I took photos, and based on our assessment for that at that particular time and the roads identified by the officer, no works were done at the time.
So if the REO is saying that the works were done, but apparently because of the terrain and the weather, that it can't be discovered now, then what happens? Is the Auditor General going to correct this paragraph? But how would he do so without any evidence of such?
Mr. Chair, what we need is what the REO said he had a meeting with the village council to show. If we could get a statement from them, then we will look at the situation.
If I can,
Statement to verify. that work
No,
was
he
done.
said that he went to the village council who did some work and was subsequently washing. So we need to get a statement from whoever he spoke to show.
Well, the area is indicating that he himself went.
No, I need to get a statement from the
village council.
because they are the contractors.
Or the village council.
Right. In these two cases, it was the village council that they gave the contract. So if we get that,
yeah, if I may add, while I was on the ground there, before I would have put this in the report, I would have met with people on the ground. I would have spoken with the Tushaw for Cato also, but they weren't too keen on what happened because I think there are other contracts that they would have had also for different roads. Remember, these aren't areas that are marked by names or so on. It's trails that you walk along the mountain. So maybe after our visit, maybe they would have, at the time when I visited, started some amount of work, and they probably continued on after I would have left. And the possibility exists that yes, the works may have been completed, but of course, if we can get the village to confirm that, we can. 2017, I did the visit.
Mr. Chair, I think the reference was being made to 2017. I believe that what my understanding of what the REO is saying is that when he spoke with the persons on the ground, they would have indicated that the work was already done. And when you visited in 2017, because of weather and terrain and all of those things, it would have already deteriorated. That is my understanding. So it's not a matter of that work being done after you left. That is my understanding of what you're saying, REO.
Yes, correct.
So the whole thing is, the question is how, the fact that it's in the report. I think that's the actual matter that we need to address. The fact that this is in the report and we have conflicting information coming from the ground, and how do we avoid this? Because the report is stating it as though it was another query popping up here, as though there is some sort of illegality or somewhat in here, and we are getting clarification that that wasn't so. So, but what was the shortfall at the level of the audit office in actually getting the correct information? That's what I'm trying to get. How do we avoid this going forward?
Mr. Chair, there's no shortfall by the office. It's the respective accounting officer have to provide information. We give them 30 days in which to respond, and they have to give the information. They cannot give us the proper information, then we have to perform that query.
Okay, all right, let me ask this question now. The team went up to do the physical verification. Just trying to get a clear understanding of how this is. How long does the audit office team spend within the region when they're doing this audit?
Through the chair, normally we would spend approximately a week, sometimes more, depending on the sample of projects that we did. The problem here with this one, Mr. Chair, is that the officer that was sent with us to do this physical verification, who would have guided us and identified what was done, was neither of the regional engineers, was the staff within the department. So I think the problem lies that the officer that went with us, he himself was not familiar or not
So the officer
aware.
that went wasn't aware of what went on prior.
One could only assume at this point. Because that's what was identified to us, that's what we document in our field notes book, and that's what we photograph. So maybe that was the case.
Remember that today?
Mr. Chairman, we move on to paragraph 847, RU. Repairs to the sanitary block at Bamboo Creek for $5,541,000. The date the contract was signed could not be determined. But as of 31st December 2016, the full amount, $5,541,000 was paid. A physical verification on 4th July 2017 revealed an overpayment of $1,875,000. This is another project. This is Bamboo Creek Primary School. Firstly, the reason for this overpayment would be contractual. Is it the contractual sum versus measured works?
Roger, that's correct. That is correct.
So this is every project from paragraph 5 to 540 to here. We're finding this repeating itself.
I am not saying that precisely that is what took place. I'm just hazarding a guess, because why else will there be overpayment? The contract sum is paid.
We cannot make a
No, the chairman is right. I mean, it's interesting that you would ask us, but we clearly, I wouldn't have the answer. And if you are suggesting reasons that you are taking some liberty with trying to say, well, this is the only way, then, you know, we got to be careful with that. Could we ask then that you look into how this has come about? And in the information that we have asked you, to the additional information that the chairman has agreed that, or is going to ask you to produce in about a week, that we also get an answer to these ones. How did the overpayments occur? Because this is every project that went on, every single one, there was an overpayment and a recommendation that it come back. If we go to paragraph 848, the same thing. New sanitary block at Parmakatoy Village. Overpayment, physical verification, nothing, it wasn't completed altogether. 849, repairs of a chain link fence at Paramakatoy. Same issue. So what was in place at that time that allowed this to happen? We would like to know. Who were the people involved in, or the officers involved in authorizing these payments? And at what stage was it anticipated that you would verify that what you're paying for has actually been done? Because in every one of these cases, we're paying the full contract sums and finding out 6 months later when the audit office is there that either there has been an overpayment because it's incomplete or nothing was done. Those are the two constant themes for 10 different projects, 9 different projects. So if we could get an answer as to how did payment come about, who authorized it, who requested it, how did it actually take place, and at what stage would there have been confirmation or measured works with payment being done that way? Because if you're paying all of the funds up front and you're paying all of the funds then, at what stage do you monitor the work, and at what stage is the expectation? What was in place at that time? If we could get answers on these from 840 to 849. Except for the one with the road that I believe we will deal with differently, the one that the community built. Because I believe the Auditor General has indicated that if you provide some information from the villages, then I believe that will be resolved.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the effort to get the information.
Could we believe a week would be sufficient, Aria? Couple of the additional information that you have committed to provide PS. Would a week suffice?
A week from today?
Yes, sir. Would 2 weeks be sufficient?
Very much so, yeah. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. For all of the information, right?
Moving on. Paragraph 852. Contract for repairs of the regional chairman's gate and driveway was awarded for $1,214,000. Contract signed 12 September 2016. That was the commencement date. The completion date was supposed to be 19 September 2016. The full amount was paid on the 31st of December 2016. Physical verification on 6 July 2017 revealed overpayment again of $149,000 from the contractor. Did this occur? Do you know how this occurred, or you would be guessing?
Given the parameters that you put me in, no.
So can we find out about this one as well? But can we also ask whether any money has been recovered?
My advice is that the job has been completed to specification. The missing component was eventually added to the project. So there is a completion of that project.
This is the gate in the driveway.
Right.
So eventually it was completed. Was it completed at the same cost?
Yes.
Or an additional cost?
No, same cost.
Okay.
Members, I put the remaining paragraphs for consideration.
8.
That is from $859 to $892.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask briefly. 854 deals with a project of 4-apartment Madhya. Again, the contract sum was 1,799,000. And again, there was a full amount paid and an overpayment of 350,000. So if you are unable to give us an answer today, can I ask that that be included in what you will give us answers for?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Likewise, paragraph 855, another contract. Madhya District Hospital Mortuary awarded in the sum of 3,398,000, fully paid as of December 31st, 2016. Examination reveals that it is overpaid by 256,000.
Was this contractor written to?
This contractor has commenced reimbursing the region. To date, he has paid the sum of 100,000.
I believe two.
Yeah, the balance of 156. We're pursuing it. 854 of me.
Right. Okay. So he's paid some up to date. When did that?
That was done in 2018.
Right. No.
Has he bid for any contract since?
Yes, he's currently doing a contract in Madhya itself.
So are we in a better position to conclude that there's a great possibility that he can complete this payment upon the completion of that contract that he's presently?
Very much so, Mr. Chair.
Now, paragraph 856, another project, staff quarters at Madhya. Now, the project apparently was 971,000. It had been paid again by the 31st of December. But it appears that it was 701,000. 856.
I think you need to report to the response,
Yeah.
because I see in the response there,
Yeah.
the building inspected by the auditors was not the actual one that was repaired by the contractor.
So,
Well, Chairman held me to the truth, and the truth sometimes is strange, but this is the explanation I was given. And this is what
I appreciate that, but there was a project for the staff quarters at Madhya.
yes,
So let's start at the beginning. Are there two buildings for the staff quarters at Madhya?
several buildings.
Right. With the one that related to this contract, was the work done?
Yes.
And has it been satisfactorily done? Has the Auditor General received the documents or documentation that they must?
The Auditor General's office, through no fault of theirs, would have been sent or gone to the wrong building.
I understand that, but there is the correct information that
Well,
could be.
The last visit of the AG's people in the region, we did require that they visit the actual
The
project.
actual one.
But on that particular day that they were there, they did not have their technical person with them, and therefore it could not have been done. But
So
they-
this is something that is expected
Yes.
to
yes,
be
sir.
resolved.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good. So we go on to 857, another project, Madhya Nursery School. 2,162,000. Fully paid by December 31st, 2016. An overpayment of 320,000.
Mr. Chairman, the contractor who cannot be located, we are making inquiries. We understand he's in Essequibian. We've contacted our counterparts in Region 2, and we still cannot be certain about his where he is how he can be contacted. But there is evidence that he was written to prior, and then we wrote one to which we may not have been able to deliver because we don't know his whereabouts.
Is there an explanation? And if you don't have one, can you add this to the list of paragraphs that
Yes,
we
sir.
have asked you for an explanation about?
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming there's only one Madhya nursery school, so they didn't go to several. They didn't go to the wrong one. Now, another project, 858, Madhya Secondary School. Contract is awarded for 2,623,000. Signed on the 2nd July 2016, fully paid as of December 31st, 2016. In July 2017, it was discovered that again, there was an overpayment of 419,000. Can you explain?
Well, like the contractor is the very same person at 857. And like that, we were not able to make contact, but we'll also add this to your list.
If we could find out why. But steps, what you're saying is you're trying to locate him so that you can take steps for the recovery.
Yes.
Now, 859, paragraph, Campbelltown Nursery School. Comes from a part of Scotland, apparently. Anyway, contract awarded for 470,000. As of signed on the 4th of January 2016, 31 December 2016, fully paid. 7 July 2017, 181,000 is overpaid.
So, if I may, Ariel. So, there seems to be an issue with respect to some of these contractors and their whereabouts. And I don't think it would be prudent for these to be a constant reoccurrence every time when the generals report. So I think the FS has a recommendation of how we could actually bring some resolution to this issue. So it won't be reappearing every time in the report. And I think this is a recommendation all accounting officers should pay heed to. And in a sense, to give some clarity to the agency. FS?
Thanks, Chair. So remove that query. The agency could write the losses board, apply to the losses board for the amount to be written off. But they must provide some certain documents and tell us the whole story, right? They need to convince us that indeed they made efforts to recover the funds. And they should convince us before we attempt to write off those losses. So the agency could write the losses board, and we will look at the request and make a decision.
Another question, FS. I mean, we have recognized this. Is there a timeline for for the agencies to give consideration to before they make the request, because we don't want the agency recognize 3 months or 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, and then they'll come in. So there must be, if this thing is reoccurring to some time that you guys find satisfactory, before such a request could be made for you to make consideration if you are going to provide for it to be written up, along with the evidence of efforts being put to reclaim the funds.
No. What most agencies don't do is to make the application. I'm not even aware if they're familiar. I'm not too sure if they're familiar with the process of removing these losses, writing these losses off. So what I plan to do over the next few days is to prepare a circular that would give clear direction as to how they should apply and what kind of documents they should submit, so that we could have a simple system to process the application. And we could remove this back and forth that would usually occur because agencies are not familiar with what they're expected or supposed to submit, right? I think the circular would provide greater clarity as to what is required, and also establish a system that would allow us to expedite the processing of these applications.
Noted. Ario, you're so guided.
Yes, sir.
What I must ask though, Ario, were you aware of that process that you could exercise?
Yes, not in that particular sense, but we are aware of the procedure in relation to have stuff written off. And it's more or less along the same lines.
Why I ask is because most of the accounting officers are very young. You're a career public servant. We have a lot of young accounting officers who probably are unaware of this procedure. So I'm happy that the FS is taking this posture to send around a circular so that we could really get all of these backlog of repeated stuff reporting in the Auditor General's report. So you're so guided, Ario.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
The records will reveal that we have been making strenuous efforts to get refunds. I think it's just in this one case, this one person we can't locate. And of course, the Ario form. But contractor-wise, we are aware of where almost all of them, except in this one instance.
No,
well, we will still pursue the matter.
I appreciate it.
Ario, Chairman, would you leave?
Go ahead.
May I ask, is this system, or at present, is the system that you pay the entire sum when the contract is signed before the works are completed?
No, Mr. Chairman, that is not the procedure.
Now, when was that always the rule, that you pay the full amount on completion, or was that something that when you came in you implemented?
No, that is the procedure. The procedure is that the works measured before the works are paid.
Sorry, it's English, but
That's I think that is an established system that the question is actually referring to. That's an established system source. I don't understand why that question is being put to the accounting officer.
The member probably was unaware. So
yeah.
Seems so sorry.
I'm learning.
I'm just making him
So,
aware.
but Ario, so I ask you now, the process whereby the entire payments were paid from paragraph 840 to 859, when they were paid, would have been in breach of the rules that existed.
That's my interpretation.
And these rules are standard, of
They're
course.
standard.
Right. Now, if I can direct you to 860. 860 says payments were made under two identical contracts, which had identical numbers, contract sum, and almost identical bill of quantities. Both contracts were with the same contractor, but however, they were signed on different dates. A physical verification of the completed works was carried out on 7 July 2017, and it was determined that the works were completed as per bill of quantities and schedule to a contract signed on 18 January 2018. Therefore, the full sum paid under the other contract, which was dated 1st February 2016, is a duplication of payment. As a result, this sum is an overpayment. So, do you have any information as to how this occurred? They did two contracts for the same work, signed a few days apart.
On that same one, Mr. Chair, before you respond, I think referring to the response again from the region for 86, it says after close scrutiny of the available record, no evidence was found of a duplication of payment.
So are you, this project, which related to bill of quantities for electrical works?
Mr. Chairman, duplication took place at the clerical level. There is evidence of duplication in the contract register, as is spelled out here. But we found no evidence of actual any financial duplication. We have been discussing with the AG's office for them to verify, because we may not have all of the relevant records may not be available to us going back then. We may have to seek the assistance of the Accountant General to get back to the IFMIS system to see that a duplication in payment was not made. But from our records, the records available to us, the duplication was purely in terms of our contract register, not a financial duplication.
So there would have been, or it appears from what your records say, your records reveal to you that there were two contracts for identical work executed.
But only one paid for.
Yes, but there were two for identical work.
Correct.
And there is matching payment for one of those contracts.
Yes, that is as far as our records go. I'm not fully disputing the Auditor General's comments or findings, but we will need further investigation help, as said, from the Accountant General's department to go back to 2016 records. And there where you will find if there was an actual financial duplication.
Mr. Chairman, if that's the position, could we ask the Auditor General for a comment on the report, on the paragraph?
AG, Mr. Chair, this one we picked up as a duplication, and at that point we had some difficulties in getting the actual PD. I brought it to the attention of the region at the time. They too was some the duplication that we picked up.
Okay.
We will requested the payment vouchers to go along with it. The RDC also were not too clear at the time what really took place. I had a voucher that I used for one of the contracts, and that stated there, the one that was signed on the 18th of January. That confirmed based on what I checked on the ground that works were actually done. The other contract that is dated different, the RDC at that time indicated that they would provide me with that voucher. And if you notice in the response, they said that they would write the contractor to recover that amount. However, based on REO's checks now and his updates, we are working together to see if in fact it was just a matter of the contract being replicated in their contract register, and to confirm that that payment was not effected twice. So that's the position, the updated position.
That's you'd consider administrative. Anyway. So the information that you would have, do you feel that your information is complete, or do you feel you need, it may not be complete?
If I had any doubt, I would not have worded it the way I did. I am of the opinion that there was no financial justification.
Good. All right. In paragraph 862, it says 18,446,000 were allocated for subsidies and subventions. And as of 31st December 2016, there were 43 payments showing the full amount had been expended. Only 17 vouchers, the total 9,243,000 were presented for audit. First question to you is this is a matter of your information, how you keep it and what you preserve or supply to the auditor. Could you take us through how it is usually done? With these vouchers, what do you have to do?
Well, the vouchers are when payment are effected, or the transaction is concluded, it would be sent back to the sub-treasury where it restored. When the Auditor General requests vouchers, as he does,
correct,
we try to get the relevant vouchers that are required. In this case, apparently, he did not get the vouchers that he actually, as to whether that would be the shortcoming of the regional administration or collectively with the sub-treasury department is one that is debatable in the sense that the region has no control on the...
No, I mean, going into that realm, we'd be speculating. What I want to know is, have these, to your knowledge, have these vouchers been found?
I cannot answer that as of now.
Could you confirm, and as of when you send us your note in 2 weeks, could you say whether these vouchers have ever been located?
Yes, I will have to, Mr. Chairman, collaborate with the Auditor General's office to know precisely, because these are vague here. I can't pick up exactly what vouchers they're referring to.
You can get that from the Accountant General.
The Accountant General should be able to assist you.
We will need to get that, and then we will do an in-depth as to where they are and if they are available.
Could you help provide that information?
Ario, please make the official request to my office, please.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. Ma'am.
Ario, the process would be that when a payment is made, there'd be a record of it and who it is made to.
Yes.
So this really reflects that there are no records to substantiate some amount of the payment, about roughly half of the payment.
Records in terms of the actual voucher, yes. But in terms of the documentation, that is why I asked to know precisely what voucher relates to what, so that we could do a proper tracing of it. But in relation to documentation, which will be there somewhere in some register, but the actual vouchers are what.
Yeah, but this was an amount of 18.4 million. 9.2 could be accounted for. 43 payments made, only 17 can be accounted for.
Yes, I noted it.
So going forward, what systems or what mechanisms have you put in place that we don't have this sort of a situation?
That's what I was getting to a little while back when I was saying that the Accountant General's Department which is the sub-treasury in the region, is more or less autonomous from the region in the sense that record keeping and so on is under the purview of the Accountant General. If we need information, we have to seek the intervention of the Accountant General. So as to what systems we will put in place, we will probably have to work in collaboration with the Accountant General.
Closer. Remember that Siraj, you have.
Chair, could I just intervene
Yes, go ahead.
here? In reviewing this paragraph, the documents that are required, that was required by the Auditor General, it's training materials. That document is not attached to the payment vouchers. Those sort of documents where the RU, whomever was the facilitator of the training, should have submitted all of that, and the RU should then have that in a file within the region. So those are not supporting documents that are required for us to execute the payment.
Mr. Chairman, the Auditor General, the Accountant General is correct. And until the requisite notes and accounts are attached, it cannot be retired to the sub-treasury. So in that case, it should be in our possession, and maybe that's why you call it.
That's correct. That should be, it may be a check, may have been a check order.
But let me say it here, and without it being a complaint, an observation. In relation to records, we're in a bad way in Region 8. We're in a bad way. And that's why I said I have to be collaborating with the Accountant General, the Auditor General.
I guess, are you during that period there? I know you are.
Yeah.
I see no further.
Yeah, thanks. But we are working, we are not daunted, but we are trying to, because my team right now would want us to get this region back an even keel in relation to record keeping, but we are in a bad way.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
in terms of the record keeping.
Sorry. Member Siraj had his mic on.
Question?
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Chairman. Permission to take paragraphs 873 in conjunction with 874. Ario, a couple of questions here. The staff quarters K2 and the doctor's quarters K2. Were these two projects awarded to the same contractor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And I noted that overpayments are in similar amount, $1.9 million each. And I also noted that the refund are also a similar amount for the two projects, $850,000 each, bearing the same slip number. I assume that's Bank of Guyana slip. And the dates are also the same. There is no duplication here.
No. It's two separate transactions.
Two separate transactions with the same number.
Yeah, because they were deposited on the same slip.
Okay, for the different projects.
Right.
And what is the current status of these two quarters, the staff quarters and the doctor's quarters?
They are in use.
I note here, whilst we had some recovery from the chairman, that some of these defects are fundamental and has to do with foundation and flow beam and all of that. So to my mind, these will get worse with time. From 2016 to now, have you noticed a deterioration in these defects as observed?
There will be no deterioration in the sense that my understanding is that as originally conceptualized, the projects were to be upper flat buildings, whereas you would have had a empty bottom flat for future development. It was subsequently, when awarded, it was awarded and then subsequently decided by the powers that be then that it be a flat building is actually one-story building. did not take into consideration that you would not need the upper perimeter beams as you would have needed in a upper-story building, and the adjustments were not made, hence the overpayment. So it would not be a structural problem.
Well, the defects as highlighted here speaks to foundation and ground floor beam